You're watching Palatinate TV.
Hello everyone, I'm Poppy, a reporter from Palatinate, and you're watching the interviews for the 2021 SU elections. With me today is Michael. He's running for the role of trustee. Would you like to introduce yourself, your course, college?
Hi everyone, I'm Michael, and I am running for the role of trustee. I'm a postgraduate student in the School of Education, studying student mental health and wellbeing, and I am a member of St John's College.
Thank you. Okay, so first question. Most students won't have heard of the role of trustee. How would you summarize the role?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, until quite recently, I hadn't actually heard of the role of trustee. My understanding of the role is it's basically just supporting the SU to ensure that they make that they're basically fulfilling their purpose in the best needs of, or in the best interests of all students' needs. So just ensuring kind of transparency and informing some of their decision making to, as I say, kind of ensure that they're fulfilling their purpose.
Great. Why did you decide to run?
So I kind of decided to run. I've been a student at Durham for a while now. I'm in my 8th year, I think, at Durham, so quite a long time. I've never really had that much involvement with this student union. I don't know a lot about what it does, which is part of the reason why I wanted to be a trustee, to learn a bit more about what this student union does. But I also think that's perhaps indicative of something that the student union could be perhaps a bit demystified, and some of their processes and practices and procedures could be more transparent and accessible just for the general student to understand what the SU does, and how it can what it can offer and how it can benefit every student at Durham.
Brilliant. And what relevant experience do you have?
I am a postgraduate researcher, so I spend quite a lot of my time thinking about stuff and making decisions, which I think is going to come in helpful, because there's obviously going to be lots of things I'm going to have to learn, and documents I'm going to have to read to be able to make kind of decisions on. I also, my field is student mental health and wellbeing, and I have experience both as an employee, but also in a kind of advisory role for different student mental health charities. So I'm on the Student Mind Student Advisory Committee, and also on the Charlie Waller Memorial Trust, which is another mental health charity. I sit on their advisory board for the work they do in universities or colleges. So there's kind of, I think, similar expectations and roles and responsibilities in terms of just being there to ensure that the decisions that they're making and the work that they're doing is aligned to the interests and needs of the people that they're doing it for, and providing kind of almost like a critical friend to ensure that that decision making process is in the best needs of, in this case, Durham students.
Brilliant. Okay, and how would you improve the visibility of the role?
Excellent question. I'm not really sure. So I think because, to be honest, I don't have the role's quite new to me. So I'm going to learn more about the role, or would learn more about the role from doing it, which would probably inform a little bit about how I would answer that question. I do definitely agree that there is a need to increase the visibility of the role of what a trustee does, because I've never encountered a trustee until quite recently, and also what the student union does. And that would be something to, I think I would explore some of the perhaps networks and mechanisms that I've used in other capacities during my time at Durham, working a little bit more with some of the college infrastructure, because the college has quite good infrastructure for connecting with students, connecting with certain societies, and going through departments, perhaps to I guess to kind of to close the feedback loop, so that students are understanding what the student union's doing and the role that the trustee is having in kind of overseeing that process, ensuring that kind of all students are understanding the decisions that are being made, and the kind of why and how they're in the interests of students. I guess I must confess I'm a bit of a I'm a bit inept at social media, but that would definitely also be one platform that I would explore and work to improve on as a way. Obviously, not as a kind of campaigning tool, because that's not really the role, but just to ensure that, as I say, kind of every student has the opportunity to see a bit more about some of the processes of decision making that are going on and what the trustee is doing.
Great. Okay. So what are your thoughts on the recently published democracy review?
I must confess, I'm going to be honest, I haven't read the recently published democracy review. I have so I was kind of vaguely aware of all the stuff last year around the elections and some of the controversy around some of the elections, and I did have a look on at the student union's response to that, and I guess that was just another contributor for me in terms of why I thought it could just be helpful to ensure the accessibility and transparency of some of the decision making that the student union is doing, both because I think that what that report's on the back of indicates quite clearly a split between perhaps some of the work that the student union is doing and the purpose and the people that it's doing it for, and also just that some of that situation perhaps again was a little bit difficult for me to engage with or understand all the processes and things involved in that. So a way perhaps, as I say, of trying to demystify the student union a little bit and some of the processes that they do.
Yeah, that sounds good. You've kind of touched on this a little before, but Durham's satisfaction in its student union was the lowest of all 137 UK universities, according to the National Student Survey last year. What would you do to sort of improve the reputation of the institution?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I've kind of come across other student unions in some of the work I've done around student mental health and well-being. I think the student union at Durham's in a slightly tricky situation, or not a tricky situation, but a fairly unique situation in terms of it being a collegiate university. And I think it can sometimes be a bit, in other universities, the role of the student union perhaps is a bit clearer in terms of what they're doing. And I think perhaps the main thing is increasing the visibility of what the student union is doing. And part of the way of doing that is trying to re-establish or increase some of the connections through the college system, to make it clear about how different, how the activities that the student union is doing, how they can kind of connect with or complement or differ from some of the activities and things that the college system's doing. Because I imagine possibly that's as I say, just from my experience and observations of other student unions that seem to be perhaps work a bit more effectively and have kind of more positive student engagement. I think it's just perhaps it's a bit clearer what they are doing to the student body. And as I say, kind of I've been a student at Durham for a long time. I feel like I've often been quite disconnected from the student union and not been entirely sure what their role is, b what they've been kind of doing. So I guess trying to sorry, this has become a very long answer, but to basically to increase the increase the accessibility and clarity around the student union's role, and one of the key mechanisms for doing that, I think, would be trying to establish much stronger and clearer connections with the college system.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so if Reopen Nominations wins the majority of votes this year, like it did in previous years, and those votes are discarded, would you resign from the role as trustee candidate, like candidates did last year?
So I haven't. That's a good question, actually. I haven't really thought about that before. I haven't really thought about that eventuality. My first response to that is I probably would. But I would perhaps have to give it some thought and see what the circumstances were. But yeah, that's actually a really good question. It's not an eventuality that I have considered. But yeah, probably would, just because it would become a difficult. I would feel disingenuous in the role, I guess, feeling like wanting to do the role to ensure the decision making and transparency of what the student union is doing, and doing that on the back of dissatisfaction and not being elected into the role wouldn't be a good start. So I think I would just take a step back from that perspective, in that if that was the reason, then that's probably indicative that people have decided that for whatever reason I'm not best placed for the role, and that they'd like to pursue another route. So yeah, I would probably just take a step back on that basis.
Okay. And you were talking a bit about your work with mental health charities before. Would you just like to talk a bit about how the student union supports students' mental health, what you think they could do better?
Yeah, so I do think we're quite lucky at Durham, to be fair. I do think in terms of what the student union does around mental health awareness and support is quite strong. I know it's kind of so we've got Nicola Frampton, who's in that kind of coordinator role for lots of the welfare issues. And then obviously the sabbatical officers kind of change, and some of the things that they've contributed to change. I know Amelia was very involved in the development of the informing the University Mental Health Charter at kind of a national level for thinking about student mental health. And I know that there has been, I think, in terms of increasing awareness of things, the student union has been quite good. I think perhaps, and this is not necessarily criticism of the student union, and possibly just a reflection of where we're all at universities, but kind of perhaps shifting away from campaigns specifically, thinking beyond campaigns specifically around mental health. And trying to put pressure on the university to really consider how some of the other wider structures and systems that they kind of implement in universities, how that impacts on student mental health and well-being. So things like housing and rent and welfare issues, which I think the student union does do, but I think that's just kind of, as I say, kind of across the board of perhaps what the student union could be continuing to work on and improve on is really kind of raising awareness to the university of how some of their kind of wider policies, etc., impact on well-being beyond just, as I say, kind of raising awareness and thinking about services and things.
Great. Okay, last pitch. Why should people vote for you?
So I think people should vote for me because I do feel like I can bring certain knowledge, skills and experience into this role. And as I say, I've been at Durham for quite a long time. So I feel like I have an understanding of the kind of the needs of students, and I've kind of encountered lots of Durham students during my time. I occupy kind of different roles and perspectives. So I feel like I have an emerging understanding of the university. So I also am a teaching assistant as well. So I feel like I have kind of complementary experiences to bring together. And then as I kind of mentioned, some of my experiences in an advisory capacity in terms of making decisions and ensuring that the decision making of the student union is aligned to its purposes and the needs of students is something that I can bring previous experience to maximize.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck. Thank you very much.